Amy, welcome to the podcast, my lovely. It's so nice to have you on, finally.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's, well, we've met, spoken a few times and over time, and we finally made the calendars align and everything here. So I'm just going to ask a very simple question for you to get the ball rolling. And that is, when people ask you what you do for a living, how do you respond?
I tell them I work with energy, but I'm a channel for energy transmissions that come through in alignment with someone's soul frequency, whatever they need in that moment. They meet the energy where they're at. And sometimes they'll get activated. Sometimes there's a light language transmission that comes through. Whatever they need, they receive.
What does activation mean to you? It's a word that we tend to hear a lot these days. And even you can even speak from your own journey as well with this, because we often even hear purging, upgrades, activation, those kind of tend to appear a lot these days now.
So, okay, so that's quite a big one. So if I take it from me, along my journey on the awakening process of after purging, I would receive activation. So I did this through using Psilocybin to quiet the mind and connect to my truth. And then sometimes it's like I would pop through into different dimensions, and sometimes I would be shown code, like someone was holding a torch behind some code, and like they would zoom in so that I would see a certain part of it, and I would feel something activating within me, not necessarily knowing what it was. And other experiences of activations, like going into different dimensions where the space was shifting, and I would see these Egyptian deity faces. And sometimes I would feel something ping in my head, like it was opening, like it was time for something. Mm-hmm. And sometimes my body would tick and move as well as these activations were coming through. It's very bizarre. So those kind of activations I received when I was with the psilocybin. Other activations I've received during sessions, sometimes there'd be like an exchange between client and practitioner or two practitioners, and you can feel like a download coming in. I read this book called The Emerald Tablets, and I received an activation from that. So the moment I finished the last sentence in the book, my whole body started singing. And then I had this push behind my heart that I needed to go to Egypt. And it was a crazy journey, actually, because from the moment I got in Egypt, people were coming up in these sacred sites who looked like guards, and they were giving me activations. So I was zinging from head to toe when I came back from Egypt. I've been twice. And then there's people who come into sessions, and the activations they receive will be, so let's say someone has distortions and interference in their field, and I work like a tuning fork and hold this frequency and bring in this light to help them release distortions and interference within their physical body, within their energy field. And as this happens, it kind of opens up these higher pathways. And if they're ready, they can receive frequencies to activate something that already exists within them. So if they're going to be a channeler or, whatever their gifts might be, hands-on healing, then these things can activate. I find people who come into my sessions, I tend to feel a where their energy has been contracted or constricted on their back. And when I started doing my energy work, I would see people growing wings, angel wings, rising up in different colors, DNA, golden DNA activating. And I don't get the visuals so much anymore, but I get this knowing of...
Are your eyes closed at that point when you're working with them and you're seeing it in your mind's eye?
Generally,
Yeah.
I move out of the way. So everything from my journey and experience is now a feeling. So I've worked with a lot of other practitioners who have been able to say, oh, this is that. I'll be like, oh, I'll feel an energy around my throat or something in my arm. And people will be like, oh, that's an entity or that's an implant. For me, it's just a frequency of energy. I just feel it releasing. Mm-hmm. There's no story there for someone to attach to. If they're ready to release it, it will clear. So with my eyes closed, usually I'm out of the way, but I'll feel it on the back of the shoulder blades. And I'm like, okay, do you want your wings back? And they'll often, I don't know, cry or feel that overwhelm from their soul that it's time. And then they'll feel this sensation. And sometimes I will see in my mind's eye their wings coming back. They're different for everyone. I had the first client I saw him growing little wings. And he said that was interesting because he actually had this condition where he had to have something removed where he'd had wings that had started to grow. And other people, they might just appear like big golden wings or blue wings. And often I see people's feet walking along the ocean like they're like Jesus or something like that, like they were in a scene. So that's generally how people activate. So sometimes I do group sessions with another practitioner and people can come in and they can raise their hand and ask for the energy channeled. And I remember we had someone and he'd suffered like headaches for 10 or more years. And the other practitioner I was working with was like, wow, you're so intuitive. And it's like, I said, I feel like you're like a pillow that's been stuffed into something really small and your energy just needs to pop out. And I felt like I could feel his energy and I could feel like I was constricted. And so we were like, are you ready to embody your gifts, to come fully online? He was like, yeah. It's like, but are you truly ready? Because the image I was being shown was like one of these mattress packaging videos, where you just kind of slice across it and then boom, the energy expands out. So we did that. And there was light language coming through at a crazy speed, this relief as I could feel the energy expanding. And he's been to a few sessions since and he's like, yeah, I'm crazy online and crazy things are happening for him. So divine timing with people coming in to activate their gifts as well. But it's not like I'm not giving someone an activation. It's time for them to activate something that's innately theirs, that they're to bring into the world.
You're setting up an environment for them to allow it to happen.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. Which is key, isn't it? Yeah, do you feel, and again, you can refer to your own journey as well if you choose to, but it's funny because we were kind of talking off this other day, but people are more frightened of the potential of their gifts. And there's a part of them that sabotages that to keep them comfortable in the known. And yet there's an aspect of them wanting more. So there's like a conflict within us.
There is that. But there's these deeper blocks that exist. So so for me, a huge one has been speaking up. And there's been so many past lives that come up where obviously I've been persecuted for speaking my truth. So there's an element of fear of being truly aligned, so let's say I'm working in a dynamic with someone else and I receive some intuition, but I don't want to upset this person and I trust that they'll receive more than me. That is shrinking my gifts, not trusting my intuition. I'm ignoring the signs in my body, effectively shutting down my intuition, not trusting myself, trusting the external more than trusting myself. If you have anyone on a pedestal or you work with someone in that way where you trust what they say over what you feel and know to be true, then you are misaligning yourself from your inner guidance. So I've been in dynamics where I've had to step away because I feel contractions in my stomach, maybe with something that they bring through, and I don't resonate with their truth anymore. Not to say they're wrong. I think many truths can exist at one time. But I just took that as my signal to step away and be in my own power. And then there's the thing of sometimes people need to find your frequency and resonate with you and not necessarily this other dynamic.
Yeah, because you said something, where was it? What caught my eye today was every word you speak is a creation code. Play the game consciously. That really caught my eye when you sent that through earlier.
Yeah.
What?
So a lot of people, so I've noticed people will come into a session, and if whatever we speak is, we emit that as our signal, as our instruction to the universe. I want more of that. So you have a thought, you voice your thought, so it has that energetic charge, and then that's your signal. So for example, if someone comes in and says, oh, this is terrible, every time so-and-so does this, this happens, and you're literally saying, that is what you choose to align to. That's your instruction to the universe. More of that, please. So you have to be so mindful about the words you speak, the programs that are running, the words that you choose to use, and the frequency that you choose to align to, because everything around you is your creation, what you have chosen to align to. So if someone is in, let's say, victim consciousness, and there are people out there who have been through awful things, but if they can shift the way they think about things, shift their mind, shift their feelings and their inner world, then they heal their past, and the universe rearranges around them to this new frequency that they hold and emit, where they're more empowered, knowing that they are the divine creational being, that they actually have more agency than they give themselves credit for. A lot of people don't. They think, oh, this is happening to me. And when you think like that, you'll align to more of that. But if you can shift these limiting beliefs that keep you contained and trapped and almost manipulated and programmed, if you can unplug from that and shift the way you think and view the world and the words you choose to use to bring this charge out into your reality, it can be very powerful.
That is the challenge, though, isn't it? I mean, for many people, I mean, we're in front of a lot of people, and many people have only ever thought that way their entire life. There's normally a deep pain, or they've tried everything else and they kind of come to us when they've run out of options.
So I see it as like you can exist on two paths. There's more paths, but simplified this way. Plugged into the simulation or consciously creating your own story. If you're plugged in, you've got belief systems, programs, scripts that are running. You're not in control. You're being pulled in, manipulated. And then if you choose to unplug and consciously create for yourself, you are in control of writing your own story. So it's like, which do you choose? If you choose love and compassion for yourself and everyone else without judgment, without expectations, without attachments, knowing that everything is flowing through you and we can create that way. And I think when we're plugged in, sometimes we think our finite mind has it all figured out. We know everything, how everything should be. I thought I should be in this job and this is my goal. And actually, if something doesn't happen the way you think, then when you're consciously creating, you can have the awareness to see like, oh, okay. Just witness it with curiosity, knowing that the universe has a bigger and better plan than our finite mind can understand. But too often people try and control, they get upset at what's happening, not knowing that if something isn't coming into fruition or isn't going the way you want it to go, then maybe it's not for you at this time. Maybe there is something better coming in. So I see those two timelines. And as a practitioner, when we get pulled into someone else's story or frequency, so I know a lot of people are empathetic. And let's say, for example, someone comes into the session and something really terrible has happened to them. If I lean into their story and feel their sadness with them, I've gone into being distorted, misaligned. I then may take on whatever is existing within them, those frequency and vibrations, which will drain me. If I can have compassionate detachment, so hold compassion for them without needing to lean into their story, then I can actually help pull them up to my frequency, to an aligned state of being. If I distort in sessions, sometimes I'll get slimed, as I call it, and I might need a bit of a clean-up afterwards. Yeah.
So here's a question for you on that then, is that when working with an individual then, and they're coming in and they're in their story, which is normal. I've been in my story, you know, we all have, but is there a point where they'll either resist to raise into your space frequency that you're, or surrender into it and start going with that? Like there's a voluntary participation and say, I actually want to go to this frequency and leave this behind.
So sometimes people are ready to shift from the story, and sometimes they just need to go through a process of being there a bit longer. Sometimes there's something you can say and it just really lands with someone. And it's like a switch that goes off in their mind. And it's like that program or belief is released. And actually, sometimes I feel this in sessions. So quite often I hold space for people and we don't go too much into the story. It's just like, well, they're guided into a meditative state and they get clarity on things that pop up and they'll just witness things. And then sometimes I feel it's like an elastic band that has been tethering them to maybe an old story or an old belief or an old timeline. And it's like a sword has swiped through it and I'll feel the ping and I'll know then that they have released something that's been holding them back and tethering them down to an outdated version of themselves, which could be, it could be anything. Even, so if I use me for an example, I am divorced and things were quite toxic between me and my ex. The moment I was able to shift and just hold compassion, it's like it changed the energy that went down this tether between him and I. And so I've healed that in me. So he turns up differently because he no longer has to turn up as this old version of him. So if I'm holding resentment and thinking he's going to show up that way, well, that's the code that I hold. And so he has to show up and be that person. If I shift how I see him, then that shifts how he is because it's literally my game.
We see that a lot. And so the question I have for you then, is it possible to have those energetic attachments to something, but we're not even aware of the story inside us that's attached to something that just keeps occurring?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it can take a while to figure out what these things are as well. Yeah, and sometimes it's past life related,
Hmm.
and sometimes it is a trauma. And quite often we get to a point where like, hang on, I no longer do that. And you don't know at what point you shifted. But so I had someone recently, they have, let's say, control issues. So we, in the session, we opened up time space, which is a very powerful clearing tool, and set the intention to go to the lifetime where they felt they needed to control things. And I didn't necessarily know what that lifetime was. And it wasn't until the end, when they shared what had been happening with them, that they were seeing lots of stuff related to their ancestors that was then clearing that they had needed to carry, which was causing this need to control everything in their life, potentially from a fear or something that had happened in the past. So we were able to help release and shift that. And then there's other things. So I have a fellow practitioner who's experiencing quite a lot of fear. And she was
Hmm.
describing it as irrational fear over something. And I was like, okay, we'll go into time space. And so we did that, held the intention, and then she burst into tears as she saw her husband killing her in another lifetime. So something that she's going through and having this irrational fear over was connected to this lifetime. And actually, I think he killed me too, because I was feeling like my head being chopped off and pain on my body as we were in there.
Nice guy.
Yep. So, so when we're in this space, it's like, okay, we can pull you away from whatever is happening and move this timeline away, sending it love and compassion. And then everything is light. You can pull a new timeline, because there's infinite timelines that exist, out of this light. And we saw her having a different ending in this lifetime. And I could feel chills and a beautiful energy around myself as this was healing. And what it does is, although it might not actually change the lifetime, it changes the frequency that she's holding. It's healing that frequency that's within her that has caused this irrational fear. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah, it's good, but I think it's helpful to talk about these things, because we we can lose sight when we're in any kind of challenges. We always tend to go to the finite mind to solve everything. And what you're speaking to is ultimately beyond the mind. And if we shift our energy and our field of information, then we shift our circumstances. We go into the source of the river, as opposed to constantly outside of ourselves all the time. And it can be a hard concept to grasp until you've actually experienced it, and you've experienced those releases and those shifts. And sometimes the pain needs to be loud for us to actually appreciate the shift that then occurs. So it's very tangible, and we have context all of a sudden that this is how it's moved. So we've gone from there, A, to point B, like you say. And for me, that's really empowering once we start to understand that as
Yeah,
well, but not give our power away to it either, and blame the past lives and this and that, so we can stay in the story a bit longer instead of
exactly. I
owning
mean,
it.
this is why so when I do my one-to-ones, I generally don't get much information. And if there's something that needs to come through, it will be pushed to me, or the client will receive the clarity and information that they need. Because when you have a past life come in and people attached to that and the story and the why, it can also contract the energy. So if you think in a session, you just allow whatever needs to be released to be cleared and released. You know, if you've learned your lessons, if all those contracts are complete, or you're ready to release whatever trauma you're holding in your field, if you just surrender and let that happen. And sometimes people will experience it like a past life clearing, and they'll have pings of memories and things surface as this is happening. But it happens at such a speed that they can't grasp onto it, because then that would stop the energy flowing. It's like and it's just a story. It's just a story.
I'm standing here right now in Lake Taupo in a beautiful retreat space. And there's a vast difference between an intellectual experience and passive listening to a fully embodied lived experience. Because that's what retreats can do. They can help you land, start to truly reconnect to yourself, to others, to nature, and to spirit as well. There's so much in it. That's why we created Live in Flow, and that's why we are so passionate about getting this work out there and bringing people together. If you want to find out more when our next retreat or event is coming up, just check out the link below. And now, back to the podcast. So what was the time-space thing you mentioned? Like, how do you explain that to someone?
So, how do I explain it? Recently, so I have been told a number of times that I'm a time shifter, and as I've mentioned, I feel these timelines, tethers to old timelines and belief systems and stories. I feel them get cut, and then what happens is it allows someone to vibrationally shift to another vibrational alignment. We call them timelines, but it's another vibrational alignment. More recently, I have been taught a modality. So there's a 70-year-old German guy who taught it to a practitioner who also speaks English. So she's taught it to me and someone else. And there's not many people that know this particular modality. And we have some symbols where we can actually just go into time, past, future. So this is crazy. In meditation the other day, sometimes with my pendulum, some words will spell out. And I got that I needed to go and get this activation. So I opened time space and I went to the point in time where I saw someone else receive this activation. And it was like copy paste. And their light frequency or something copied, and then I integrated that with me and then brought that back through time space and received that attunement. I mean, I don't know if that will make any sense, but so I'm also a blueprinter. So with galactic astrology, learning the origins of like my soul, there's certain things that people will be told. I'm a blueprinter, so I can work with blueprints. A lot of blueprinters are the people who will help activate people, are key holders. You have access to certain codes and frequencies.
What do you mean by blueprint? Can you explain that to people?
As in like your blueprint. Mm-hmm. So there might be like a blueprint of a planet, a blueprint of a universe. Let's say, if anyone's seen the Adjustment Bureau, I feel like they're very similar to what they have there. They have this book with a blueprint on and the journey of someone's soul and what they're going to experience. And I imagine it like a little circuit board, and things that are lit up, things that aren't lit up, or things that might need something releasing so that it can be fully aligned. I see them differently because, so I might see it as like a circuit board, or sometimes it's a light body. Sometimes it's like if you imagine like a white carpet with splodges on it, helping release those splodges so you can connect to like your whole soul frequency. It's like being
Yeah, I was going to say, like, is it, I'm just trying to, so the perceptions of this across for everyone. You know, like when you have a building and then you have a blueprint of the architecture that we're going to impose in it. Do you kind of see it like that? Like this is the blueprint of your soul and your life, but then there's elements of it that aren't smudged and not correct. So we can't fully
Yeah.
express ourselves
So
in this lifetime.
I did see this one time when I was helping someone realign their blueprint. They'd asked specifically for something. And so I saw hands banging on the desk and a smoothing out of this big blueprint on the desk and just rearranging. I wasn't actually looking at what was happening. There was a knowing that I was being shown this this visual because that's what was happening. It's like, we're working on your blueprint. So I don't actually necessarily see. And this is the other thing. When I say I see these things, it's like another version of me that is seeing things through my heart. It's not in my mind. It's like in another space. I'm receiving this visual, even though I can't see it, which again is really hard to explain. But I think there's a lot of people on this journey and they think they need to have like a HD visual to see. And sometimes the seeing is a really clear picture in a thought form. If that makes sense.
It does. It does. Yeah. When did you go from path A to path B with your journey then?
So what do you mean? Like awakening, ascension, or?
Yeah, to conscious from were you like, because we had the matrix and then we had the conscious creation. Like, were you down that path? Did you have a career? What kind of?
So I think maybe it was after I had my daughter and I had some birthing trauma, and like a part of me left that day. And I felt like I was just an avatar or character walking around. And I just thought that's how life was supposed to be. And then I was unhappy in my marriage. I think my dad died very suddenly in 2022. And then I had someone come into my life who kind of cracked me open, and I fell in love with them at this, it was like being cracked open, and this love, this feeling I had never felt, almost like I awoke to myself. I left my marriage. I started seeing someone else who then left. So they were like my catalyst, because there was activations, Kundalini awakening. I went through my dark night of the soul, my looping stories, my attachments, everything. And the only way I have healed is shifting from being attached to anything to this point where I can literally let it all go. I have no control over anything, and it's shifting my view to to releasing all attachments and expectations, and then realizing, hang on, the more I attach to something, the more I push it away, the more I feel like something isn't here that I want, the more I'm aligning to that, so I will lack it. So then it's this turning into my inner world, loving myself completely rather than expecting anyone else to love me. I have to love all the parts of myself that I have ignored, heal all the parts of myself that I need to, or feel I need to heal. And it's through that, through not reaching for anything outside of myself, that has raised my frequency and vibration, has taught me detachment, has amplified my intuition and my gifts, helped release those programs that run in the mind.
What activated your Kundalini? Was that, so were you meditating at the time? Was you just started coming along line? You mentioned psilocybin earlier. Like, what was the opening concept?
it just started happening. I was meditating and then I was just having these like blissful waves. And then all my chakras started flip-flapping in my chest. I was feeling dizzy. I had no idea. I didn't know that was Kundalini awakening. I had no
Were you
idea at the
scared?
time. No, because it felt really nice. I was scared because I thought when my chakras were flip-flapping, because I thought, oh, maybe I've, I don't know, got a heart condition or something. But that settled and there was expansion and things were coming online. And fortunately for me, I was surrounded by a really lovely group of other practitioners, other awakeners that I'd met through certain spiritual platforms who were accessing their gifts on the same path as me at the same time. So there was community is so important. You know, when you're going through something and you're in the depths of despair and you've got other people who are there, it's like when you hold space for someone else, as you're doing that, it helps shift something in you as well. So those moments are really important.
Yeah, no, it's good to know. It's good to know. I like to there's always a catalyst of some sort, and different. I found on my journey that the different specific elements, and spirit tends to present things when we're ready to grow a little further and a little more, and we either shy away from it or lean in at the end of the day.
So
And
I had been, and I don't know why, but I had been sitting on my bed at the beginning of each day saying, I offer myself in service to the divine. I have no idea where that came from, but I just started saying this. And then I believe it was a person at my work that activated this Kundalini in me, just being in proximity to them, because they were creeping in my dreams. And I was having, thoughts about them. And I was just like, why is this happening? And it was very unusual. Anyway, they disappeared from my life. And then another like soul connection came in who helped mirror a lot of my wounds, showing me where I was disempowered, what I allowed into my reality. And this was very much like a push and pull soul connection. And it was really great for growth because every time there'd be this separation, there would be this integration, this growth, gifts would activate even more. And I've seen so many other practitioners, healers experiencing the same thing as well with these soul connections that come in, because it's like the more work we do on ourselves, aligning to our true soul frequency, it's like we call in soul tribe. And these aspects of us help activate parts of us, like bringing fragments of us back to ourselves. So between me and this other person who came in, they were like, oh, they dreamt that they had an activation on their hands. Or I'd be falling asleep and I remember witnessing a flood, like I was viewing it through someone else's eyes. And then that night there had been a flood in Brazil. I think this is a few years ago. But I was seeing the people bobbing along in the river in their motorbikes. So people can come in and help amplify your gifts, which is another form of activation.
Do you feel that this is a particular time at the moment where more and more people are being activated per se?
Yeah. So I used to work as a medical intuitive because I help people release the distortions and interference. So it helps them release the frequency of disease, of pain. But more and more people are activating. So it's like there's a real push on. Now it's like your healing journey, or there's two parts. The first part, I know for me, is first of all, like heal the DNA, heal the ancestral line. And then the second part is your soul's mission. And a lot of people are now stepping into this with their gifts activating. But sometimes they've obviously been led through, or the catalyst for them, for their awakening has been an illness, a disease or trauma. and them having to heal that. And once they heal that, they're ready for the activation. They're ready for their soul mission. Because as you say about the diamond, I can't remember what you say.
No pressure, no diamonds.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. Do people come and see you, or you might have even witnessed this change in to be healed or to be activated, or both, or to clear? You know, I'm not saying that's what you do, but in their mind, were they coming in, oh,
Yeah.
I just got to get rid of this. I'm in this pain. Amy, just sort me out. Or is it more, I'm ready for my soul to fly, you know?
So I think a lot of people who, I would say there's two categories. You've got some who turn up and they just don't do the inner work and they are just like, heal me. And the energy feels quite contracted and I can hold a frequency. And what people need to understand is the energy meets you where you are at. So if you're doing the work in your outside world and your inner world, then the energy will fly off. It will be really easy to bring you into this higher alignment and then for the activations to come through. With being a medical intuitive, there were a number of people who would turn up and be like, heal me. And it's like, well, that's not what I'm doing. I can bring in the light. And if you're ready, if you've done that work, then if it's in alignment with your soul contract and your journey, then you can release this. And quite often people will need to release resentment or stop a story, see something clearly in order for some disease or something to release. Oh, where was I going? Yeah, so we have people come in and they might have, so I feel like there is a shift. So some people come in and they have pain and things, and they have done so much work on themselves. And maybe they feel like this is their last resort. And they're like, oh, I'm just gonna try an energy healer or something. And then they come in and they're in tears and this pain that they've had for 20 years releases. They grow their wings, they see Jesus, and they activate. So it really does depend on the individual that comes into the session.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel, because of where I am on my path, my reality is shifting around me, which means the people that align to me are shifting. So whereas I might have had more contracted people, perhaps they were just meeting me where I was at. And now it's like if you think of the ladder of ascension and maybe I was on step 2 or 3 and say I've moved to step 5 or 6, it's not really efficient for me to use my energy with someone who's maybe not as open. But if I have someone either side of those, the energy can move a lot more. It's more efficient to work with people at a closer frequency. It ripples out more.
That makes sense. No, it makes sense. Complete sense. Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. The whole thing's fascinating. And one last topic I want to touch on as well, before, because, you know, you sent me a couple of notes in there and I thought, I've got to ask Amy this. What does she mean by that? Because you said you were entering different dimensions, but you also experience God looking through your eyes. Can you tell us about that, please?
So that was one evening I had taken Psilocybin, and then I meditate for quite a long time. And then there was this ping, and there was just, it's only happened once that I have seen this. There was glitter all around me and I was glowing, and it wasn't Amy looking through. It was something far greater, like, and I remember drawing a diagram at the time of like, who is this? And the thoughts were so fast that were processing through my mind. And it was like, I am the awareness behind the awareness. And I remember channeling all these notes. And as I was channeling them, my entire hand was glowing blue and violet. And I could see all this sacred geometry in everything, on the page, in my skin. I could see rainbows on my skin. And just every thought or question I had was answered with such clarity. It was this knowing of, oh, it's really, with my limited mind, it's really hard to describe how clear that was and how magnificent it was. It was like the creator had popped through to just check in and see how everything was. And although it didn't stay, I know I was meant to experience that connection so that I could have when I'm in these moments. And you asked about how do we release certain programs and things. Sometimes it's these mystical experiences that we have that just shift us. There's no going back. You're transformed from an experience you have. So if I'm ever find myself looping, it's like I come in with this higher awareness and I see it and it's like, no, let it go. Just come back into the present.
Was that while you were on psilocybin or after that?
No,
when you were
it's
writing
after. So it would be microdosing, and it was almost just like to help me pop to this higher place. And I was ungrounded before that, and I remember feeling like one of my guides had chopped the end of my finger off to ground me, and then everything just went and pinged into this brilliant, like I was seeing all these arcs in all the space around me. I knew I should be able to open up the space with what I was seeing with my eyes. And that I should, like, the wall was rippling, and I knew I should have been able to put my hand through the wall, and it wasn't real. I knew that it was all just code. Yeah. It was beautiful and strange and very expansive.
Yeah. And it caught my eye as well because multiple times at different retreats when we're, especially by like day 4, the energy is so expansive. Then when I hold space for meditating, I've had a couple of experiences where I've felt beings look through my eyes and like join me. And it's the most beautiful and unusual feeling I've had from doing that. Yeah, it's quite profound, actually. Wow, as I channel the energy, and it just comes in. Holy moly, it's incredible. And like you say, once you start having those experiences, there's no going back. It just it changes everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
I remember this one experience I had where I was meditating and I vibrated and popped out of my body, but not in a like traveling out of my body way, but I was in this consciousness. I was consciousness. And I remember thinking, I am, and I couldn't have any more thoughts. I couldn't have any more experience than just being. That was it. And then this brilliant white light was birthed from this space. And I think with my mind, I've maybe come to understand this was maybe the moment my soul was born from consciousness. And it came down in through my body, and it kind of rested in my root chakra. And so I felt bliss energy around my body before, but this was next level. This was off the charts. Thought I was going to dissolve into this bliss frequency. And this brilliant light moved. I've never seen anything whiter than this white. And it moved through every cell, every space, my mind, my energy field. And in that moment, I knew this is what I am, truly. I am this frequency of light. So it doesn't matter if I die, it doesn't matter what happens, because I know this is what I will return to. I will never be lost, I will never end. And I remember I was just witnessing. And I was like, just let me stay here. I just want to stay. Because it's the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced in my existence. And then it started to fade. And I remember afterwards thinking, oh my gosh, this body is so tight. I do not fit in here. How on earth do we fit in this body from having this incredible, expansive experience of being outside my body in this brilliant light? Yeah, I can't wait to go back to that.
With before we wrap up the podcast, Amy, as well, do you have any, like, if you could distill it down, what you've learned along the way and then how you apply it in your life now, do you have any words of wisdom for everyone listening that has helped you along the way, or how, your kind of philosophy on life now? I know you spoke to surrender a lot earlier.
So for me, my main mission is helping people come into alignment, which we do through being as present as we can be, trusting that everything is happening through us and for us, having this curiosity of why things are happening instead of a judgment when something doesn't seemingly go to plan, trusting that, if you miss the train, it's meant to happen. Don't let yourself get angry. Just enjoy the time that you've got. And just almost being more childlike with the things that are happening in life that maybe your old self might get angry and cross about. And that just raises your frequency as well, releasing the attachment and the expectations. And it's really freeing. Really freeing.
Yeah. And if people want to have a session with you, how do they go about booking in?
My website is amyelizabeth.uk.
.uk.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, it's been a while since I've lived there, that's for sure. The UK, here in Australia. But yeah, Amy, I just want to thank you for coming on the podcast and speaking very honestly and vulnerable. It's been lovely to get to know you a little bit more, and it's been great to be able to share your gift to the world and to people that tune into my podcast every week. So much appreciated.
Thank you. I enjoyed the conversation.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. There we go.